All right, Marge is all dried off, warm to the touch everywhere. Once it's completely dried off, I'm gonna come in with a kneaded eraser. This is a soft eraser that I can use to come back in and just pull off some of these pencil lines. Some of them I don't need anymore. Some I kind of want to leave. Like probably those around the eye I'll leave. If you've gone over your watercolor or over your pencil line with watercolor or even water, you won't get the line up. But that's okay. All watercolors have pencil lines in them. I'm gonna leave those claws for now because I still kind of need to see where they go. All right. So now I just want to come back in and put some darks into Marge. I'm using my small brush. I look at my value sketch here. I want to go real dark up against her face here. So I'm going to mix up a real dark color, just a phthalo blue, a little bit of cadmium red, nice and dark. When I'm doing that second wash, I'm working with wet paint onto dry paper. Come on and cut up underneath there. I'm going to rinse my brush, and now I'm going to pull this color out into all those little feathers. See, cuts out all that headpiece. I'm going to go real dark up here. I'm actually going to turn my paper around so I have a little bit better access. Nice and dark. Nice and dark under here. I lay a little bit of color down. Then I'm going to rinse my brush, and then I'm going to pull that color out into those feathers. That just kind of creates a little bit of a shadow of that backside of her feathers there. This one's nice and dark as well. Kind of cuts that eye out a little bit. All right, now we've got nice darks down here. Let's cut these feathers out. That nice dark line. Pull that color down a little bit. I'm going to rinse my brush, and then I'm going to pull that color down. And I like to leave little bits of that original color showing through every once in a while. Just add a little sparkle in there as well. All right, now down here. Nice and dark. And I'm working with 3 colors just to keep it really simple, keep it really easy for you. These 3 colors all work well together, and they make beautiful colors when they mix together. Now I'm cutting up right up against those flowers, or those feathers. And now I'm going to rinse my brush and dry it a little bit, and I'm just going to pull some of this paint, this wet edge, kind of up in there a little bit more, just to create more of that feathery edge. Rinse my brush, and then I pull this side down. I'll let that dry, and then I'll come back in here and do a little color work as well, a little second wash on there. I'm gonna use this same color a little bit lighter on my brush, a bit finer area. Sunlight's coming this direction. I'm gonna do this side of the leg, just a little bit thicker, just a little bit heavier. This side of the leg, this side of that foot, this side of that foot, the bottom of that foot. I'll connect that one up too. And I also want to put a cast shadow on here. The sunlight's coming this direction. It's going to come right underneath her feet here. Cut her claws out a little bit. I'm going to rinse my brush. Pull that color back in there a little bit. And I'm going to pull this off the page. Straighten that up a little bit. Soften that shadow up a little bit. So it's just a cast shadow. Sunlight's hitting her legs and casting that shadow off of them. Make her body kind of come up here a little bit. All right, back to a few darks. Want that nice, rich, dark color. I'm going to do just the pupil of her eye. Just that little centerpiece. A little bit in this eye. Gives her a little bit of personality. Small brush, I just grab a little bit of that darker paint. And I just want to cut her beak apart here a little bit. Needs a little bit of this darker color. I'm going to cut her comb out. Go around it. Rinse my brush, and then I'm going to pull that color up so that red really stands out. All right. One last little area I want to go a little bit darker with are these tail feathers back here. So I'm going to mix up a little bit richer paint, just a little bit thicker pigment. That cadmium red is a really strong color, so you use just a little bit of it. Nice and dark. I like that dark right up against her neck feathers there. So I'm going to cut right up against that. I'm going to kind of go along the bottom of some of these feathers. Just think about the bottom sides of some of them. Put some of that dark color on them. Rinse my brush. Then I can pull some of that color up in there. By just doing those bottoms, they kind of look like they're curled a little bit. They have a little bit more dimension to them. All right, this is fairly dried off. I'm going to come back up in here with a real dark orange. I'm going to go with a little bit of yellow, a little bit of cadmium red, a bit more of my lemon yellow. And I'm just going to cut up underneath a few of these. Rinse my brush. And it's going to pull that down, leaving some of that original color showing through, some of that light showing through. And I want to come back in and I want to grab this wet end and pull it back up, cutting behind these feathers that are on her up here. All right, I think I've got all the second wash on her that I need. I can come back and just clean up some little areas. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to let her dry for a little bit, and then I'll put the background in. All right, Marge is completely dried off again. Now I'm going to start adding some background in. First, I'm going to start with a flat brush. Get it nice and wet. And I'm just going to kind of get some nice wet areas out here. It's going to get lots of water going out here, and then I'm going to come back in and refine it. A little bit between her legs. A little bit underneath her feet. Up in this corner, get this corner nice and wet. This corner nice and wet. Now I can come back in and I can refine. And that's why I chose to do a flat brush, because I can really get into all these little points and just pull water around. And I want the background fairly wet. Now here I didn't erase those pencil lines because I'm going to bring my background right up to those little lines there. I'll have a little bit of light left out there on the tips of her feathers there. It'll make more sense when I put in the background. I can turn this brush, get the point right in some of those areas. I get down and look at eye level. That way I can see where my water is. If there's big pools, I can pull them off or redistribute that water to another area that's drier. Use my towel to kind of re-dry my brush. Pull out all the big puddles. Just let it sit for just a second or two, let that water really soak in. Now I'm going to kind of put a bluish greenish background behind him. I'm going to kind of run some blue along these orangish places, and then maybe a little bit of green along the purple areas a little bit. Just get the complementary colors next to those areas. Here I'm going to use a little bit of this blue. I want to stick with the same colors in my foreground and background, so I'm using the same colors on him that I'm going to use in my background. Nice and wet, and I want my water or my paint nice and wet as well. I'm just going to grab just a little bit, just to neutralize it just a little teeny bit. Grab some of that other color that's already mixed there. It's got a little bit of the red in it. I'll start this corner. Pull right next to all those feathers. With it nice and wet, I like all the things that happen kind of in the background or that the watercolor does itself. I love those little, edges like that kind of sift off a little bit. I'm going to pull this side just a little bit tighter. Pull this color down just a little bit more. And I'm going to leave that corner for now. I guess I'm still using that blue. I'll use more of that, a little more of that blue. Nice and wet. Keep your paint nice and wet. Come right up against this nice orange. I want to work fairly quickly because I don't want this drying on me too much. I'm just going to let those edges kind of do what they're going to do. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit more yellow and a little bit more of that blue. It's going to green it up a little bit. Run that color down in here. Let those colors almost meet. If I'm going on a background that's crossing behind something like the legs here, I want to make sure that all those colors are consistent. There, there, and there. That makes it look like that background passes behind that leg. Let those colors mingle a little bit. Pull in nice and close. A little bit more of that green. Just a bit of blue. Just a hair bit more yellow. There we go. Just a little bit more yellow in there. Kind of bring those together, let them almost touch. Again, that's why I like using a flat brush. You have a little bit more control with how much paint and water you're putting out there. A round brush will carry a lot more water and paint. I think I'm gonna do that top up there in that green as well. And I'll show you why in a minute here. All right, now I'm gonna do this bottom. Composition wise, I've been finding lately that if I do 3 corners similar and one totally different, it kind of just lends itself to the composition. It kind of leads the eye in a little bit. So that's why I did that corner green, and I'll do these 2 corners green. I'm gonna go just a hair bit darker though, I think. Kind of like to pull that phthalo blue out over here because it's so powerful. I kind of like to water it down here, and then I can bring it into my yellow over here. I want this kind of to come around. There's the claws. A little bit darker in some areas. Cut those feet out. Cut those claws out. Now I can go right over the cast shadow because that's going to turn darker as well. I'm going to go right over the top of that. Between the feet. And bring that dark up a little bit. Now, by introducing water back in, paint and water back into this, I'm going to get some balloons down here, but I kind of want that actually. I want a little bit of texture down in here. All right, I think I'm going to stop there.